Good evening and welcome to Equipping Women. I'm grateful, glad to have you guys back, but I am beyond elated because not only do I have one of my very best friends in the whole world that is visiting us on vacation, a mini vacation while they're here in the States. But she's getting to spend some time with Herschel and I, she and David. So this is Pennie Hatcher. Pennie, how long have we known each other? David and Herschel have known each other their whole lives.
All their lives.
And so you got introduced
Probably
to us. I don't know. We've been married
around-
almost 40 years.
I think
so-
around 90. Michael was 2.
Okay. All right. So
That I know,
anyway, known
when
each
we
other
met.
a long time. She's my Penny's my iron sharpening friend. Everybody needs somebody in their life that loves them, laughs with them, and sharpens them. And you're my gal for that, and I hope I am for you. And
You are.
It's fun to be with you. We laugh uncontrollably at a lot of things that absolutely make no sense. But tonight we're going to be talking about contentment. Pennie did this on the fly on last moment's notice, so we just thought, hey, she's in. Let's pull this off. Let's make this happen. But contentment is what we're going to be talking about, and contentment is really one of the most beautiful qualities of a Christian woman because basically it's attractive in every way when you know somebody contented and you see that lived out, but then it's also fulfilling for that person. So Pennie and David are serving in Manaus, Brazil, and you guys have been there how long?
I've been there 36 years, and of course David most of
Been there his
life,
whole life.
almost
But
all of
you
his
were
life.
Born here in the States, grew up in Hawaii, and the Lord, through a series of different wonderful events, ended up landing you in Manaus, Brazil. And
That's right.
when you went to Manaus, it was a very basic country. Like I remember even when we first started going there, a simple, like, grocery stores that you have now, mega markets and all that, everything was a from scratch kind of thing,
Yes.
right? And so you had a new learning style.
Yeah, I mean, like even to buy anything, you had to be able to speak Portuguese to ask for it.
True,
You couldn't
right,
just
right.
roll your cart down an aisle and pull things off and then get to the end and look at a price and pay it. You had to actually ask for the tomatoes and ask for the meat.
Wow.
So that was a big challenge at first. Yeah.
It's just different. We like to help yourself philosophy here.
Yeah.
And they have helpers to help you, but you have to speak their language.
But you got to
too.
speak,
You gotta
speak
their-
Portuguese to do it.
Absolutely. So I think contentment is an incredible virtue. I think it's an incredible discipline of the Christian
is,
life.
yeah.
And I've seen you seek it with fierceness. And you've encouraged me to have it. So to me, it was like this was the no-brainer topic first of all, it's a no-brainer topic for me because I always need to be refreshed on this one because I don't think I'll ever arrive at it and stay there.
Right.
I can
Yeah.
move toward it, but it is
goes
a
in
floating
phases. It
target
is, yeah.
basically of doing
And the
it.
enemy will always be trying to pull you back to discontentment.
Oh.
So you're right, it is a discipline.
Yeah.
You got to practice it as a discipline, be aware
Yeah.
of it constantly. Yeah.
Right. So I thought this would be a good thing for us to talk about. So we're just going to share some last minute thoughts we've just sort of pulled together about biblical insights on contentment. But let's just start with the basic of how would you even know if you struggle with discontentment?
Well, one good way to know is to do the if-when test. I call it the if-when test. And it goes like this. You say to yourself, I'll be happy if fill in the blank. Or I'll be happy when fill in the blank. And if you can fill in the blank with anything, then discontentment is an issue or contentment is an issue in your life.
Yeah. So pretty much every one of us. would
Yeah,
have
I mean,
a time.
everybody pretty much fails that test.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of things that I could put into that blank.
Right.
And those are the things that tell me I need to take those things and get a new perspective.
Right.
A contented perspective on whatever it is that I filled the blank in with.
Well, and what
So,
you know, I know, and everybody out there who's listening would know
yeah.
is all those things that we think if I had fill in the blank or if we moved to fill in
Yeah.
the blank, you get those things and then a brand new thing will pop up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. Just contentment in a person's life is like a tank.
Mm-hmm.
And so if my tank has a big hole in it,
Mm-hmm.
there's no amount of pouring in that will ever fill my contentment tank. The hole in that tank, of course, is the sin of discontentment. And so my husband can suddenly start being and doing everything that I filled in the blank with. If he did this, I'd be happy. I'll be happy when he does.
Mm-hmm.
My children can start doing and being everything. My finances can start doing and being
Mm-hmm.
everything that I ever filled in that blank with. Pouring into this tank. But if I've got a huge hole in the bottom that's the sin of discontentment, there is no amount of putting in that will ever fill my tank.
Right. Just pours right out.
It pours right out
Pours right out the bottom.
right out the
And
bottom.
that's a
yeah.
great picture. And that really is our whole challenge. It's not just putting in more things that we think can bring us happiness or contentment, but
Yeah.
patching a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's talk about patching that hole
All right.
then of discontent. You
All
know,
right.
what are some things? Let's just talk about like what are some biblical principles or insights or thoughts just in general you have that can help us know how to either address discontentment in our life, seek contentment, however you want to sort of attack it. Just give
Yeah.
us some good principles here.
There's some things that I try to always keep in mind, things that we all ought to keep in mind. One really big thing for me to help me keep myself aligned in this way is to always remember that it's not God's job or even his desire or goal in any way
Mm-hmm.
to make me happy or to keep me happy. It's exactly the opposite. My goal is to glorify God. My goal is to make him happy,
Yes.
not
Right.
keep grasping and wanting him to somehow make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in the practice of glorifying God and making him happy, I'm happier all
All the
along,
time.
happier all
Right.
the way along.
Right.
So I get that as a byproduct of trying to glorify God,
Mm-hmm.
striving to glorify God and make him happy. I get happier.
Mm-hmm.
The more I expect God to make me happy, the less happy I am,
Mm-hmm.
the less content
Yeah.
I am.
Well, and you're just doing that whole tank principle.
Yeah.
You know, again, pouring something in.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess the good patch then of that hole is recognizing that very first truth right there. That
Yeah, that's a
our
start.
job, our job is not for God to make us happy, but
Yeah.
us to glorify and make God happy. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's my
what
goal.
else we got?
Another thing that has helped me is when I got my brain around the idea that anything that makes me cry out to the Lord is good for me. Okay, so any lack that I perceive, any want that's unfulfilled, any amount of inconvenience, suffering,
Pandemic.
that I think is coming
Right.
my way,
Right.
anything that
Right.
makes me cry out to the Lord
Right.
is good for me because prone to wander, Lord, I feel it.
Well, and we want to be independently meeting our own needs and
Absolutely.
self-serving
Yeah.
and self-help. You
Yeah.
know, the world tells us all those kinds of things. So-
Yeah. And so if it makes me just go, oh, Lord, help me through this day, or oh, Lord, help me through this
Right.
minute, or just say the word Lord. Or Jesus.
Right.
Or
right.
just say, Jesus, help.
Yeah.
It puts me in a posture of dependence on him. And once I got my mind around anything that makes me cry out to the Lord is good for me, it changed remember that blank, that
Right.
I'll be happy when, I'll be
Right.
happy if.
Right.
That blank completely changed around. I'll give you an example. In the last about 10 years of my life, my whole age bracket has put me into a whole set of new challenges, physical challenges, one of which is insomnia. Okay, so I think a lot
Same.
of ladies can understand this.
Right.
And so before this all happened, I didn't have a problem with insomnia at all. So when insomnia became an issue with me, I'd wake up 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times a night and just tossing and turning. And, oh, Lord, why are you doing this to me? And why are you not fixing this? And why don't you let me sleep? You know I need sleep. You know I need sleep. Of course, Lord knows everything about me. And He knows what I need and how much I need of it. And whatever He does, He gives you the grace to do or do with or do without. But when the penny dropped and I got anything that makes me cry out to the Lord is good for me. Well, insomnia makes me cry out to the Lord the minute I wake up and it's still in the middle of the night and I'm awake.
Yeah.
Cry out to the Lord. And then the Lord just gave me the idea. Turn every time you wake up into your prayer meeting. You say, well, you don't have enough time during the day to pray, and I can't get away from all the racket, the noise, the commotion, the distraction, to really pray. I've prayed more with insomnia than I ever did in the other times in my life. I've prayed through all the missionaries. I pray for Buck Rudd. I pray for all of our sister churches and the people who we know who are pastoring churches. I've prayed for all the sick people, all the elderly people, the moms
it really
with
is
kids.
My catch-up time.
Yeah.
It is my catch-up time.
And so,
focused.
focused. Yeah. So whereas before I'd wake up and go, oh, Lord, why are you doing this? Now I go, you woke me up. Yeah. All right, it's me and you, Jesus. What are we going to talk about now? And He'll tell me what to, tell me, but, lay on my heart. The Spirit will prompt me. What are we going to pray about tonight? Yeah. And that's what we pray about. I mean, if you're a mom with little kids, you got prayed more in the last 10 years of my life than ever before in my whole life.
That is absolutely true of me. A friend of mine recently came to me with a real struggle in her life. And I talked to her the very next day, and I said, I literally prayed for you all throughout the night.
Yeah.
And I lifted you up all throughout the night.
Yeah.
And that is
the
true.
Comfort that brings to someone when you say that and you mean it. You're not just giving lip service to
I'll
that.
Be praying for you.
I truly prayed for you.
I truly lifted.
The love that infuses into that person's life, the care they feel.
Right.
And so that's just one example where that could have been a great source of discontentment for a long season in my life. And we're talking, about 10 years so far, and it's still going on.
Far. Right, us.
And instead, I've just learned to be content with my insomnia. And the Lord has just changed that around. It's become actually something I might even say I look forward to. I certainly don't dread it.
Right.
Like I did before, waking up many times through the night.
Right.
So,
well, you got good biblical principle of Paul, who put that into practice of contentment, and again, when he writes Philippians and he's in a place that no one would really ever want to be, it's a very discontented place, especially because in his brain he goes, this can't be productive for the Lord to be in prison. It would be far more productive if I were in a different place. But now, knowing what we know on this side, we see it was the most productive thing he could have done. So this may be the most productive thing is for us to be without sleep. And, petitioning, pleading on people's behalf. So, recognizing that is huge. All right. What else could you help us sort of steer us in?
Well,
so we want to look at the tank thing and recognize about that. We want to see it, not despise the things that are areas that we might struggle in, but what else?
Yeah, we want to say anything that makes me cry out to the Lord is good for me.
It's good for me.
Okay. Good for me.
All right.
And then there are sort of some things that I always try to keep in mind or do when it comes and goes. Contentment is something that we will struggle with our whole life. We don't just become contented and then just, I got a grip on that. Good. Okay, now I can turn my sights to some other struggle in my life. I mean, we struggle to stay content for our whole life.
And you and I talked about this just right before we actually are taping this. And, this side of heaven, we will always have unfulfilled longings.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. Until we're with Jesus, we will always feel we are missing out on something because we are.
We are. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, what we think it's manifesting itself as is not that thing really.
Yeah.
It's something much more different.
Yeah,
So
and we have to learn to distinguish between discontentment and restlessness.
yeah,
I'm restless in this world because I wasn't made for
for
this
this
world
world.
the way that it is. I was made for how the new world's going to be.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm restless for all those things to mesh and line up, and I walk in complete freedom. I'm restless for that. And I can't confuse my restlessness with this world and contentment or discontentment
Right.
with this world.
Right.
Restlessness, I believe, is not a sin. It doesn't offend the holiness of God. It actually glorifies God to say, I was made for
Someplace. I was made for bigger
made
and
to
better
be with
things.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
it's it's
right.
a way to glorify God, to constantly acknowledge that. But to be discontent,
Yeah, that's good to help know there's a difference in it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That kind of
Yeah.
restlessness.
But I can't let the enemy take what God means for good and twist it around, which he's good at doing,
Right.
and cause me to be discontent. So one thing, that I do when I understand this is not just mere restlessness, I'm truly being discontent. And we all need to, we need to confess that as a sin. Discontentment is a sin, I believe. Here's how I think it's a sin. When I'm discontent, I'm shaking my fist in the face of a good God and saying, you're not being good to me. I'm defying his character and his nature and saying, you are not who you say you are. And especially with regard to me. And I'm shaking my fist in the face of God and saying, your decisions for me are not good ones. And all of God's decisions for me are good. They're good. Contentment is essentially living how I would live if I could see everything the way God sees everything.
Right. That's so true.
And
Right.
and so it is a worthwhile personal discipline and soul cleansing act to get on your knees before God and name it, call it what it is.
Yeah, see it as a
I
sin.
have sinned.
Well, you know the incredible text that demonstrates that it really is a sin is, you've got the children of Israel. He's leading them. He's providing them with manna from heaven. He's providing them with quail. Their clothes never wore out.
Yep.
I mean, seriously, miraculously showing his good presence and faithfulness with them. And then Numbers chapter 11, verse 1, and it says, and the people complained. And there is no time that you're discontent. And I can almost say this without any question, but there's no time that if you are a discontented person or discontented in something, that it isn't followed by a complaint.
Yeah,
It will
either
always
out loud or in your head.
Right. It's going to
Yeah.
manifest itself in some
Yep.
kind of complaint way. So
Yeah.
it says, so these people are discontented people. It says, when the people complained in the hearing of the Lord about their misfortunes, and
It just sounds ridiculous,
It
doesn't
sounds
it?
ridiculous. And then it says, and when the Lord heard it, his anger was kindled. He's angry at their
Yes.
looking at what's happened in their life at the misfortunes.
Yeah.
And totally missing the fortunes.
Yeah.
I mean, really the treasures. It
Absolutely.
says, and the fire of the Lord burned among them and consumed some outlying parts of the camp. And then it's interesting to me that it goes on then, it says, and then the people cry out to Moses.
Instead of the Lord.
Instead of the
Yeah,
Lord.
it's somebody's fault. It's somebody's
Yeah,
fault.
right.
Yeah.
So it is a sin.
And we
confessing
yeah,
that.
and we look at them and we go,
That's
"Those
ridiculous.
people, what's the matter with
Right.
them?" And then I just go, "Whoa, let's just turn that light,
Right.
that spotlight right back on me, and
Right.
I am the one.
Right.
I am the woman
Right.
doing
Well, you
that."
and I have talked about this, Stephen. Like if we've got just like it's a cranky, entitled, frustrated spirit kind of thing going on, and it just sort of
Yeah,
seems
my dad
small.
would have said that you got your nose out of joint.
Your noise is out of joint, right? So, and I will be just sort of feeling that, and the Lord in His goodness will have passed before me His goodness and show me something that is far more challenged than my life could ever even comprehend.
Yeah.
And I'll just go, I am so the Lord is so good to me. Like our dear friends, David and Glenda Miller, here he is, a paraplegic and has been relatively his whole life. His wife's diagnosed now with Alzheimer's, and
Yeah.
the two of them are dealing with that. And they were talking about, and the night we spent a few days with them, and I remember the night that before we left the next morning, he sat there from a wheelchair that he's been in pretty much his whole life with his wife, struggling with disconnections and knowing she's got Alzheimer's and what this is going to flesh out and look like. And they both just said, "Man, hasn't God been so good to us?"
Yeah. Oh,
And
I
they
want to be
never
that.
they
I
never
want that.
complained,
Yeah.
those days we were there.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, why
Yeah.
would I go? Why would I say, oh, these things that are misfortunes in my life? So confessing it
Yeah.
as a true sin, the
As a
Lord
sin.
sees that as a sin because
Yeah.
what it says about Him
Yeah, exactly.
is big. So
Yeah.
what else can we do then?
And then I decide again, yet again,
Uh-huh.
that I'm going to be content. You just make a decision.
Right.
It's something that you decide. It doesn't come naturally. It can't possibly come naturally to us. We are the daughters of our mother Eve.
Yeah. So example,
She had the whole garden.
the whole garden.
You may eat from every
Every-
tree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
but
it's-
no, I want that one. I want that one, that I don't. I'll be happy when. I'll be,
This will give me
happy
more.
if I can eat from that tree. And so it's part of our sin nature, and we live with it, and we've got to decide over and over, confess it, and decide over and over again. I am going to be content. I'm going to be a person who's content. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a decision.
Yeah, you set
It's
your-
not this thing you feel. It's not this wave that comes over you.
Right.
It's not because you felt something. You decided.
Well,
you just
and-
plain old decide.
Yeah, and it's an aggressive.
Yeah.
It's as if you've been diagnosed with something
Yeah.
that you need to radically change your
Right.
life with. And it's not just a diagnosis of cancer that you have to now take treatments and stop eating certain things and living certain ways. It's a diagnosis of sin in
Yeah.
the soul that does
Yeah.
as devastating effects in your life. And so, yeah, confessing it, making the decision. And then you would add to that.
Yeah,
what?
and then I'd add to ask God for it, because any prayer which will take me to a place where I'm more glorifying of God in my life is a prayer that God will honor. Paul said, "I've learned the secret of being content." So there's a secret somewhere in there that that's not plain to me.
Yeah.
And so I've got to ask God to help me understand that secret and give that to me as a character quality, and help me to have the discipline to practice it, and help me to have the discernment to know when discontentment is rearing
Right.
its ugly head again. And so just asking God for it. And it's such almost sounds trite to say, but there are on so many levels you don't have because you don't ask.
Right.
I'm going to do this. Okay, yeah, I'm going
Right.
to change. I'm going to be contented. I'm going to quit complaining and murmuring. And then I just forget that step. Well, I just need to ask God for it. Please give me contentment. Please show me the secret. Show me
Right.
where do I put the key into
Yeah.
this door that's going to
Yeah.
unlock this, unlock this understanding for me.
Yeah.
So just plain old ask
That's
God
a good
for
reminder.
it. Don't skip that
I
step.
forget asking Him.
Yeah.
I do think I'll just exercise my
Yeah.
will and love for Jesus.
Yeah.
By
And-
doing it instead
yeah.
of just asking first.
And I am sort
Ask
of
Him.
I am kind of a meticulous sort of a person, or a kind of a methodical, I guess is
Me
a better
too.
word
Me
for
too.
it. And so, my steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, typically gets me there. Only when I'm asking for a change of character, transformation of heart, my Penny's step 1, step 2, step 3 just ain't going to get me
Gonna do
there.
it.
I've got to ask God for
Yeah.
it. I have to ask Him.
Yeah, it really isn't like a long synonymous 12-step program.
Yeah.
Those steps are important.
They are.
But they have to begin with pleading for the
Yeah.
Lord to just be in us doing His work.
Yeah.
Basically. All right.
Yeah.
And then we would go to
And then my last thing is, once you've done that, do the work.
do it.
You got to do the work, because if you're
What
first,
will that look like?
Yeah. Okay. So if my first reaction is the murmuring one, the discontented one, the, oh, if only, oh, when I, that's sort of my first reaction. That tells me that I have wired my brain by habit to react incorrectly, to the circumstances of my life. So I really literally have to rewire my brain. Well, we wash our brain with the washing of the word. So I need to memorize scripture to rewire my brain. I need to get away from friends who are discontent and who pull me into their discontentment through our conversations and whatever it is we talk about and stuff, and it's constantly pulling me towards discontentment. I got to recognize that, and I've just got to pull away from that. And then one other way to rewire my brain is to just do what I call it the gratefulness exercise. Every time that blank, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if, and that blank shows up in my life, I take whatever it is that I put in that blank, and I start being as intentional and creative as I can to think of as many things that I can be thankful for that God has sent me that circumstance.
Well, like your insomnia.
Yeah, like the insomnia. Yeah,
Right.
like that.
Just
And as many things as I can thank the Lord for. I mean, if the enemy, I do have a sin nature that makes me discontented, but if it's also the enemy trying to pull me away from the Lord and not glorify God with my life, me thanking God is a way to get him to tuck his tail and run. He just doesn't want to be around the presence of praise or thanksgiving. He does not want to see God being adored and worshiped. And thanking God is a way of worshiping God. And so it's a way of getting the enemy to turn tail and run,
right.
essentially.
Well, this is, and there's something that's even tricky about this too that I want to make sure I help myself sort of process this, and I hope we help other people process this. But sometimes we think we can trade off past obediences for current indulgences. And what I mean by that is you go, well, I'm so thankful. God is so good to me. Isn't he so good? And we'll make statements about the goodness of God with the same breath that we also voice a discontentment. So it's not just adding praises in your life and gratefulness, it's removing from it. Like if I overheard Herschel say, Tanya is an amazing wife, she's so great, and I'm so grateful for her, but then I also heard 6 other things of the things that I'm not doing right, then it sort of washes out my gut, right?
It
sort
sure
of
does.
puts it at the same, well, then that just makes me mediocre at best.
Yes.
If not bad. Because more times than not, he could probably voice a lot of things that are little irritations and stuff. And so the fact that we just say, we excuse ourselves, we allow ourselves to say things, and once you say them, your brain has this way of sort of welcoming them. You just you are free then to have an emotional response to it.
Yeah.
It's not just a fleeting thought that goes across your mind, but once you say it. So saying those things of gratitude. And I don't remember, maybe it's Nancy Lee DeMoss, and I'll never know how to say her last name. Something like that. She does a lot of these things where she'll introduce, 30 days of praise.
Yeah.
And I remember she helped me sort of start putting it into practice, just the discipline of not just thinking the things I'm grateful for, but verbal praise, saying them out loud.
And along with saying it out loud, it's kind of important for me, at least, for me to switch up how I say that and say it in the first person and not the third person.
Okay, so give me an example.
What I mean by that is the third person would be like this: oh, God is so good. God's so great. Oh, God's so great. And the first person is me talking to God, and saying, instead of saying, God, he is good, say, God, you are good. So you're good and everything, you are good and everything you do is good. I mean, literally on some days when I feel particularly assaulted in the discontentment sin and the sin of discontentment, I can say it 100 times through a day, just saying it out loud.
Right.
You are good, and everything you do is good. And then the devil or whoever,
Right.
whatever,
Yeah,
however
right.
that
Whatever it
happens,
is. Yeah.
my sin nature, puts me in to that blank,
Yeah.
fill that blank in, that little murmur blank.
Right.
You are good, and everything you do is good.
Right.
You are
I
good,
sing
and
that song, "You are
everything
a
you do
good,
is
good father."
yeah.
That's who you are.
Yeah. Rather
And
than
I just
saying to
right.
someone else, well, God's good, he'll take care of me.
Yeah.
It puts distance between me and that intense
Longing.
desire
Yeah.
to glorify God
Yeah.
and show him in my life and in my
Right.
attitudes
Right.
that I'm glorifying him. And so I say it with you, not he.
Yeah.
And it makes a really big difference
Yeah.
to me.
That's good. So put
Yeah.
in the work. How else
Yeah.
will that flesh out? You got anything else about what the work might look like? Got an example in your life? Somebody did that.
Well, okay, so the first, maybe perhaps, this happened way back early in my life, so perhaps we should have started out our conversation with this, but let's end with it instead.
Okay.
The first time that I started going, I think I might have a problem with contentment or discontentment. I'll start thinking that through. So when I first went to Brazil, and of course my mother-in-law had gone to Brazil way before I did, decades, before I did, when Manaus, the city that we live in, was even more primitive, let's
Super
say.
remote. Right?
Yeah, very remote, very primitive. And she had this quality about her. At the time when I was younger, I thought it was happiness. She's always happy.
You're right.
But later on, I realized that, well, she was always happy.
Right,
But that
but
it was
it's not that.
greatly due to being content.
Yeah,
It was
joy.
contentment. Yeah, joy and
Joy.
contentment.
Big difference.
Yeah, and and she lived like that whole contentment. Contentment is living like I would live if I could see my life how God sees it. And she did.
She did.
Oh, I want to do that. I want to be that. I want to be like that. I mean, she
Right.
was an incredible influence
She's an incredible
on
woman.
me. And she told me that she said that when she and her husband first went to Brazil, David was a baby, was 9 months old. So they had 4 children under the age of 6. And of course, John went ahead on a ship and took all of their goods, got there before she did, and rented a house. And then she came with the 4 children on an airplane, had never flown before, with 4 children under the
Right.
age of 6, and flew to this place where she'd
Right.
never been before.
Right.
So she gets there, and he's got this house rented, and so he takes her, to the house. They walk in. She bursts into tears. And, are these happy tears or are these sad tears? I know it's different than Kentucky. It's not the house we lived in, or whatever somebody might say at that
Right.
moment, or
Right.
or understand those tears to be.
Right.
No. I'm happy. I'm so happy because there's tile on the floor, and I expected to raise my 4 little bitty children on a dirt floor house, and there's tile on this floor. It just can't get any better than this, And so when she told me that story, I thought, I'm sure I wouldn't. I'm sure that would not have been my reaction. I've got to work on this.
Right.
This is something I've got to work on, and
Right.
she taught me that.
Yeah, she taught me that too.
So
Alta Hatcher.
Alta Hatcher.
She's amazing woman that
Yeah.
most people will never have even heard of.
Yeah.
But I started off by saying one of the most beautiful qualities of a Christian woman is contentment.
Yes.
And as far as like physical beauty of Alta, I wouldn't say it was extraordinary, but her beauty was breathtaking
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah.
encapsulated in a godly woman beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, you or I couldn't begin to take a whole lifetime to explain
Yeah.
the treasure of this lady. And
Yeah.
contentment was clearly
Yeah.
evident
One of the
in her
most
life.
apparent marks
Right, right.
of her character was
Right.
contentment. It's one of the
Right.
things that I most learned from her.
Right. Yeah. That might be true of me. And I would say she was, again, appeared that happiness was always her trait, but contentment was always her trait.
Yeah.
And it manifested itself in happy.
Yeah.
Because she wanted that, like one of your points, making, her goal wasn't for God to make her happy.
Yeah.
She was happy in Jesus.
Yeah, and in the
that was
glorifying of
and
God,
glorifying
you
of
get
God.
happy as a byproduct.
That is,
you get it as a
that is
byproduct.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well, man, these are some incredibly rich truths, some great challenges, especially. I mean, it's contentment. It doesn't matter what circumstance of life you're in, whether we're in a pandemic or whether we're in an incredibly fruitful time. Contentment's going to show up. Just a matter,
Yeah.
And the richest of homes that have everything you could ever
Yeah.
envision having, there is incredible discontentment in it.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's like a tube of toothpaste.
Yeah.
If you squeeze it, what comes out?
right,
What was inside.
right,
And so contentment, it shows up under squeezing.
yeah.
And whatever there was inside, that's what
What's going to happen?
that's what shows up. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us tonight. I am encouraged, challenged of soul and spirit and flesh to seek fiercely
Yeah.
the discipline and decision and prayerful application and plead of the Holy Spirit to do His
Yeah.
work in me, in you, so that we may display the glory of God in our lives. So thanks for joining us tonight on Equipping Women. I appreciate you guys. I am in a very contented heart right now. We'll see you next time. Bye.